Miami was once the jewel of the American dream, where ocean breezes carried promises of fortune and sunshine, masked the darkest secrets money could buy. But somewhere between the neon lights and penthouse views, paradise became a playground for something far more sinister. The secrets of dirty money in Miami, the paradise of laundering, reveal a city where billions vanish in plain sight, where luxury condos stand empty as monuments to greed, and where the American dream itself became the perfect cover for the world's most sophisticated criminal enterprise. What transformed this tropical haven into the global capital of financial crime? The answer is darker than you ever imagined, and once you see it, you'll never look at Miami the same way again. Picture this. The year is 1980. Miami Beach sparkles under the sun. Families stroll along Ocean Drive. Retirees sip coffee at sidewalk cafes. The city hums with honest ambition. Real estate developers build modest homes for middle-class families. Banks process legitimate paychecks and mortgages. Children play in parks that smell of salt air and freshly cut grass. This was Miami before the fall. A city of simple pleasures and achievable dreams, where hard work meant something, where a dollar earned was a dollar respected, where the skyline told stories of progress, not perversion. Everyone remembers that Miami, the innocent one, the one that believed in itself. We all thought it would last forever, but something was already stirring beneath the surface, something that would transform paradise into a machine. Not a machine for dreams, but a machine for deception. By 1982, Miami banks were reporting more cash deposits than the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. More cash than the financial capital of the world. Let that sink in for a moment. A tropical resort city was swimming in more physical currency than Wall Street. How does that happen? How does a place built on beaches and retirement homes suddenly become flush with more cash than institutions that move trillions? The Federal Reserve noticed. They investigated. What they found would expose the darkest secret of the American century. Miami had become the primary entry point for Colombian cocaine into the United States. And with that white powder came an avalanche of green paper, billions upon billions of dollars, all of it dirty, all of it needing to be cleaned. The cartels faced a beautiful problem. They were making money faster than they could spend it. Pablo Escobar himself admitted to writing off 10% of his cash reserves each year because rats would literally eat the bills stored in his warehouses. Imagine having so much money that rodents consuming millions of dollars becomes an acceptable business expense. But Miami offered a solution, a perfect, sun-drenched, all-American solution. The real estate market became the first washing machine. Cartel operatives would arrive with suitcases stuffed with cash. Not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, millions. They would walk into luxury developments and purchase penthouses, entire floors, sometimes whole buildings. All cash. No questions asked. Developers didn't care where the money came from. They saw Latin American buyers eager to invest in American property. They saw commissions. They saw bonuses. They saw their own slice of the avalanche. So they looked the other way. And Miami's skyline began to rise on a foundation of cocaine profits. But here's what makes this truly insidious. These properties weren't meant to be lived in. They were investments in invisibility. The condos stayed empty, lights off, curtains drawn. Ghost towers filled with ghost money. The cartels would hold the properties for a few years, then sell them through shell companies. The cash that went in dirty came out clean, transformed by the simple alchemy of American real estate. The profit from the sale? Legitimate capital gains, taxable income, legal money. The system itself became the accomplice, and Miami became the promised land of financial transformation. The banks knew. Of course they knew. When a teller in a small Miami branch processes more cash in a week than a Manhattan location handles in a month, questions should arise. When customers arrive with duffel bags reeking of chemical residue and humidity, red flags should wave. When the same faces appear day after day, depositing just under the $10,000 reporting threshold, alarms should sound. But they didn't. Or rather, they did, and were silenced. Because the banks were making a fortune. Transaction fees, service charges, interest on overnight deposits. The cartels were the most profitable customers these institutions had ever seen. So policies were relaxed. Oversight was minimized. Suspicious activity reports were filed late or not at all. The money was just too good to question. One bank in particular, the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, became the cartel's favorite institution. Operating branches throughout Miami, BCCI specialized in discreet services for high net worth clients. They offered anonymous accounts, minimal documentation, lightning-fast international transfers. They promised privacy, and they delivered. Between 1977 and 1991, BCCI processed an estimated $23 billion in illicit funds. $23 billion. The bank didn't just tolerate money laundering, it perfected it. Created departments specifically designed to clean dirty money. Hired experts who could navigate international banking laws like surgeons navigating arteries. Built a global network of shell companies and offshore accounts that made tracing funds virtually impossible. BCCI became known in criminal circles as the Bank of Crooks and Criminals International, and Miami was its throne. But the empire of dirty money required more than just banks and real estate. It needed legitimacy. It needed a face that could smile at cameras and shake hands at charity galas. Enter the Miami business establishment. Restaurants flourished that never seemed to have customers but reported massive profits. Nightclubs where the velvet rope decided who could clean their money and who couldn't. Car dealerships selling Ferraris and Lamborghinis for cash, no credit check required. Art galleries where paintings by unknown artists sold for millions, their value inflated by necessity rather than talent. Every transaction was a layer of soap in the washing machine. Every business a front for the fundamental transformation of criminal proceeds into respectable capital. The lawyers came next. Brilliant minds from prestigious law schools who saw opportunity in the gray zones of international finance. They created labyrinthine corporate structures, trusts within trusts. Companies that owned other companies, each registered in a different jurisdiction with different disclosure requirements. They exploited every loophole in tax law, every ambiguity in banking regulation, every gap in international cooperation. For a percentage, they could make your past disappear and your future shine. They drafted contracts that would hold up in court but concealed illegal origins. They negotiated deals that looked legitimate on paper but served one purpose only, cleaning cash. And they became very, very wealthy doing it. The accountants joined the party too. Respected professionals with degrees from top universities and memberships in prestigious associations. They manipulated balance sheets with the precision of artists, created fictitious revenue streams, invented expenses that never existed, generated paper trails that led nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. They knew which numbers to adjust, which ratios to maintain, which auditors to charm. They transformed raw criminal proceeds into polished financial statements that could pass scrutiny from investors, banks, even government agencies. The best of them could take a drug trafficker and turn them into a legitimate businessman on paper, complete with tax returns, investment portfolios, and charitable foundations. The magic of accounting made murder money look like entrepreneurship. And the city itself became complicit. Miami politicians accepted campaign donations from developers who built with cartel money. City officials approved zoning changes that benefited properties purchased with drug profits. Police departments, underfunded and overwhelmed, focused on street-level crime, while billion-dollar transactions happened in air-conditioned offices above their heads. The system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed. Everyone got their cut. Everyone benefited. And everyone pretended not to see what was obvious to anyone willing to look. But wait, because what came next reveals just how deep the corruption ran. The legitimate businesses began to suffer. You remember the family-owned restaurants, the mom-and-pop shops, the small developers who built affordable housing? They couldn't compete. How do you compete against unlimited capital? How does a legitimate business survive when criminal enterprises can operate at a loss indefinitely? Because they're not actually trying to make money. They're trying to clean it. A restaurant that needs to show profit cannot beat a restaurant that needs to show revenue regardless of expenses. A legitimate developer building for actual buyers can't compete with a shell company buying entire buildings with cash just to hold them empty. The honest businesses failed, one by one, shuttered, bankrupt, defeated by an enemy they couldn't even name without sounding paranoid. The working families felt it next. Remember those affordable homes? Those middle-class neighborhoods where teachers and nurses could buy houses and raise kids? Gone. Priced out. When cartels are buying properties at 30% above asking price in all-cash deals, regular buyers disappear. When investors from shell companies are purchasing entire blocks, families looking for homes have no chance. The neighborhoods transformed. What was once a community became an investment portfolio. Houses that once held laughter and barbecues stood vacant, appreciating in value while contributing nothing to the community. Miami's soul was being purchased and removed, square foot by square foot. The 80s turned to 90s. The cocaine cowboys got arrested or killed. Pablo Escobar fell. The Medellin cartel collapsed. The world thought Miami's dirty money problem would end with the cartels. But that's not how systems work. The infrastructure remained. The banks still knew how to process questionable funds. The lawyers still knew how to structure opaque deals. The real estate market still welcomed unexplained wealth. All that changed was the clientele. Russian oligarchs replaced Colombian cartels. Chinese officials with embezzled funds replaced Mexican traffickers. Venezuelan politicians joined Brazilian criminals. The nationalities changed, but the game remained identical. Miami had become a machine that couldn't be turned off even if someone wanted to. It was too profitable, too embedded, too essential to too many people's fortunes. By 2000, the problem had evolved into something even more sophisticated. The term luxury real estate became synonymous with money laundering. Miami led the nation in cash real estate transactions. Not just led, dominated. A study revealed that 76% of condo sales in Miami-Dade County to shell companies came from buyers with murky identities and suspicious financial backgrounds. 76%. More than 3 out of every 4 purchases. Buildings rose with names like Porsche Design Tower and Ritz-Carlton Residences, where units sold for tens of millions, often to limited liability companies registered in Delaware or Wyoming, with nominee directors and untraceable beneficial owners. The penthouses stayed dark, the amenities unused, the pools empty. Vertical ghost towns hovering above Biscayne Bay. The government tried to respond. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network issued geographic targeting orders requiring disclosure of beneficial ownership in luxury real estate transactions. Lawyers immediately found workarounds. Instead of one $20 million purchase, they'd structure 4 $5 million purchases through different entities. Instead of buying in Miami-Dade, they'd buy in Broward. Instead of condos, they'd buy homes. The rules created speed bumps, not roadblocks. Because fundamentally, the United States wanted foreign investment, wanted capital flowing in, wanted the appearance of a booming economy. The dirty money was just the cost of doing business in a global economy, or so the thinking went. But here's what nobody talks about: the human cost. The cities that became unlivable for regular people. The schools underfunded because property tax revenue came from vacant units owned by phantoms. The emergency services stretched thin, protecting empty towers instead of occupied neighborhoods. The small businesses that closed because they couldn't afford rent in a market inflated by criminal capital. The artists and teachers and nurses and firefighters who left because they couldn't afford to live in the city they served. The children who grew up thinking wealth meant emptiness and success meant secrecy. The corruption of the American dream itself, transformed from a promise of opportunity into a monument to greed. Miami today stands as a warning. The skyline glitters. The beaches still sparkle. The restaurants still serve overpriced cocktails with ocean views. But underneath the glamour, the machine churns. Every luxury tower is a question mark. Every cash sale a potential crime. every shell company a mystery. Estimates suggest that between 2 and 5% of global gross domestic product is laundered annually. That's $800 billion to $2 trillion. And Miami remains one of the world's premier destinations for that dirty money. Not because it's easy anymore. It's actually quite difficult. But because the infrastructure exists. The expertise remains. The willingness persists. And most importantly, because everyone benefits just enough to look away. The pandemic revealed even more. When the world locked down, when borders closed, when normal people struggled to survive, Miami's luxury real estate market exploded. Record sales, record prices, record cash transactions. While families lost homes to foreclosure, penthouses sold for $30, $40, $50 million. While small businesses shuttered permanently, shell companies bought entire buildings. The contrast was obscene, but it was also clarifying. It showed what Miami had become, a place where crisis for regular people meant opportunity for money launderers, where human suffering coincided with criminal profit, where the system designed to protect citizens protected capital instead. The banks paid their fines and continued. Billions in penalties for facilitating money laundering. But the fines were just another cost of business, a small percentage of the profits they'd made. No executives went to jail, no institutions lost their licenses. The settlement agreements included neither admission nor denial of wrongdoing. Legal language that means everything and nothing. The machine absorbed the fines and kept running. Because shutting it down would require acknowledging how deep the corruption runs, how many respected institutions are complicit, how much of Miami's wealth is built on crime. And nobody wants to acknowledge that. Not the politicians, not the business leaders, not the residents who benefit from property values inflated by dirty money, not the nation that wants to believe its financial system is clean. The lawyers who set up the shell companies, still practicing, still charging premium rates, still structuring deals that separate criminals from their crimes through layers of legal entities. The accountants who cook the books, still signing audit reports, still sitting on boards, still teaching at universities. The real estate agents who ask no questions, still selling properties, still collecting commissions, still posting luxury listings on Instagram with captions about exclusive opportunities and investment potential. The system protects its own because the system is its own. Everyone is complicit. Everyone benefits. Everyone pretends. You want to know the darkest secret? We all know. Every person who's paid attention to Miami for the last 40 years knows. The journalists have written the exposés. The investigators have filed the reports. The academics have published the studies. The evidence is overwhelming and publicly available. But knowing and acting are different things. Because acting would mean disrupting an economy, destroying property values, acknowledging that much of America's prosperity is built on looking away from crimes committed by foreign criminals with money to spend. It would mean admitting that we chose wealth over integrity, that we sold paradise to the highest bidder regardless of where their money came from, that the American dream is available for purchase by anyone with enough cash, no questions asked. The condos still rise. Construction cranes dot the skyline like a forest of complicity. Each new building, another opportunity. Another washing machine. Another monument to the perfect crime. The buildings have pools on every floor and helipads on the roof. They have wine cellars and private theaters and his and hers bathrooms larger than most people's apartments. They have everything except people because they're not homes. They're investments. They're vehicles for transforming dirty money into clean assets. They're the physical manifestation of a system that values capital over community, profit over people, secrecy over accountability. Walk through South Beach at night. The buildings glow against the dark sky. Beautiful, impressive, empty. Look up at the towers and count the dark windows. More dark than light, more vacant than occupied. More absence than presence. Those empty units represent billions in stored value. Billions that came from somewhere. Somewhere violent. Somewhere tragic. Somewhere that families were destroyed so that penthouses could stand empty. The darkness isn't just absence of light. Its presence of crime. Each dark window is a transaction nobody wanted to examine, a question nobody wanted to ask, a truth nobody wanted to face. The tour guides don't mention it. They point out the Art Deco architecture, the celebrity homes, the famous restaurants. They talk about Miami Vice and Scarface like they're entertainment, not documentaries. They mention the cocaine cowboys as history, not prologue. They sell the dream of Miami, the sunshine and success, the opportunity and optimism. They don't mention that the opportunity belongs to criminals, and the optimism is for those who profit from looking away. They don't say that paradise was sold piece by piece to the highest bidders from the darkest corners of the global economy. They don't admit that Miami is the most successful money laundering operation in history because it convinced everyone it was just a city. But you've felt this, haven't you? The sense that something is wrong? That cities aren't supposed to work this way? That housing markets shouldn't be investment vehicles for international criminals? That bank accounts shouldn't smell like cocaine and corruption? That luxury should mean something more than expensive emptiness? You've walked through these neighborhoods and felt the absence, seen the buildings and sensed the lie, known instinctively that something fundamental is broken when paradise is purchased by those who profited from misery. We've all felt it, that quiet knowledge that things aren't right, that the system serves money instead of people, that we've traded our souls for skylines. The question isn't whether Miami is a paradise for laundering dirty money. The evidence makes that clear beyond any reasonable doubt. The question is what we do about it. Do we continue pretending? Do we keep celebrating record real estate sales while ignoring their sources? Do we admire the skyline while ignoring the darkness within? Do we accept that this is simply how the world works now? That capital flows where it wants and morality is an outdated concept in global finance? Or do we demand something different? Do we insist that paradise means more than property values? That community matters more than capital? That the American dream should be available to Americans, not just to oligarchs and narcos and corrupt officials looking to hide their stolen wealth? The machine keeps running. Right now, this moment. As you hear these words, somewhere in Miami, a transaction is closing. A shell company is purchasing a property. A lawyer is structuring a deal. An accountant is adjusting a balance sheet. A banker is processing a wire transfer. The money is moving, always moving, never resting, because the machine cannot rest. It must clean. It must transform. It must turn the proceeds of violence into the appearance of legitimacy. It must make crime look like capitalism, must make theft look like investment, make corruption look like commerce. And Miami is where it happens, has been happening, will keep happening until something fundamental changes. Empty tables, empty streets, empty dreams. The restaurants that served families are now serving oligarchs. The neighborhoods that raised children are now raising property values. The city that promised opportunity now promises only anonymity. Miami became the world capital of financial crime not through accident, but through choice. Choices made by banks that valued profit over principles, by lawyers who valued fees over ethics, by politicians who valued donations over duties, by citizens who valued property appreciation over community, by a nation that valued foreign investment over financial integrity. Every choice made sense individually, but together they built a system that transforms paradise into perdition. Maybe there's still hope. Maybe Miami can reclaim its soul. Maybe the empty towers can fill with actual people living actual lives. Maybe the beaches can belong to families again instead of money launderers. Maybe the dream can become real instead of a cover story for crime. Maybe transparency can replace secrecy. Maybe integrity can become more valuable than anonymity. Maybe we can decide that some money isn't worth accepting, that some investments aren't worth making, that some growth isn't worth celebrating. Maybe we can remember what paradise meant before it became a product for sale to the highest bidder regardless of their sins. But that would require something we've forgotten how to do. It would require saying no to money, turning away profit, sacrificing growth for principles, choosing values over value, demanding to know where money comes from before accepting it, insisting that luxury means something more than expensive, that success means something more than profitable, that paradise means something more than property. And we've forgotten how to do that. We've been taught that asking questions about money is rude, that capital should flow freely, that global finance is too complex for moral judgments, that we should accept the prosperity and ignore its origins, that we should enjoy paradise and forget the price. The secrets of dirty money in Miami aren't really secrets at all. They're truths we've agreed not to speak, facts we've decided not to acknowledge, realities we've chosen not to confront. Everyone knows. The towers stand empty not because of market forces, but because of criminal needs. The banks process suspicious transactions not because they're naive, but because they're complicit. The lawyers and accountants and agents facilitate laundering not because they don't understand what they're doing, but because they're paid well to do it. The city itself isn't ignorant of its role. It's built on it, depends on it, profits from it. Miami isn't a victim of money laundering. It's a willing and enthusiastic participant. And so paradise became something else entirely, not a place of dreams, but a machine for cleaning nightmares. Not a destination for families, but a haven for criminals. Not a city of sunshine, but a shadow economy where darkness wears expensive clothes and rides in luxury cars and lives in empty penthouses above the city it corrupted. Miami sold its soul and bought a skyline, traded its future for foreign capital, sacrificed community for commissions, and now stands as a warning to every other city watching and wondering whether they should follow the same path. Because the path looks profitable. The towers rise, the economy grows, the property values soar. But underneath the growth is absence. Underneath the prosperity is crime. Underneath paradise is something far darker than anyone wants to admit. We saw it happen. We watched it unfold. We noticed the changes. We felt the shift. We knew something was wrong, but we did nothing. We said nothing. We accepted the money and ignored its sources. We enjoyed the prosperity and forgot its price. We built paradise into a washing machine and convinced ourselves it was progress. And now we live with the consequences. Empty towers, hollow prosperity, corrupted dreams. A city that serves money instead of people. A system that protects capital instead of citizens. A paradise that belongs to everyone except those who actually live there. It's time we remember what it used to mean. Time we demand something different. Time we insist that cities are for people, not for laundering crime. That real estate should house families, not hide money. That banks should serve communities, not cartels. That paradise should be earned through integrity, not purchased through corruption. Miami can change, but only if we change. Only if we choose transparency over secrecy, accountability over anonymity, people over profit, community over capital, dreams over dirty money. If you felt this change too, if you've watched your city transform into an investment vehicle for international crime, if you've seen neighborhoods become ghost towns while luxury towers rise, share your story in the comments. And if you found this eye-opening, subscribe, because the next story might reveal where everyone's going next. The machine is expanding. Other cities are following Miami's path. The secrets aren't staying in paradise. They're spreading. And the next chapter of this story is being written right now in a city near you.